Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Hi, I'm Natasha Milani, CEO of South Australian Leaders. I'm passionate about supporting the growth of businesses through the power of collaboration, helping companies to connect, scale and grow. This podcast is all about collaboration for anyone who runs a business. It can be lonely at the top. I believe no one executes alone. We all do better when we do it together. These are real companies talking about real challenges and how they strive to overcome them. Let's all learn and share together. Today I'm talking with an inspirational business leader, Binh Nguyen, founder of Marketees, an inspirational person and business based here in South Australia. In the space of, I'm going to say digital marketing, but it's not digital marketing at all, really. It's I describe your business, Binh, as getting the right message to the right people at the right time. Welcome, Binh.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you for having me.
Was that a good way to describe what you do?
It's one way to describe what we do. I mean, it's very...
I'm not sure that's a good way.
No, but I think it's good because it opens up curiosities for people. And now they want to know more, right? If it's digital marketing, but it's not digital marketing, they're going to want to see the explanation or the elaboration of that. So I think it's good.
Which is what you do.
Exactly. So I'll build curiosity, right?
Beautiful. I'm so thrilled to have you here today. Everyone that's listening today is going to get a beautiful insight into your mind, which is a labyrinth in my analogy. So let's just start by talking about who you are and what you do. Okay,
so I'm a South Australian boy, but I haven't been here all my life. I was born and raised in Vietnam for the first 8 years of my life. When I was born, our country just finished from a Vietnam War where the North took over the South to get the country back. My family, they went through the traditional study and then you work for the police force. My dad was in the police force, and at the time the French colonized the country. So when the South Vietnam took the country back and we had that war, because my dad was working in the army, we ended up losing everything. So in my first 8 years, my dad was put in prison as well. We got everything stripped away from us. And he was put in prison because he tried to help people escape the country. So that was the first 8 years of my life. And then I came to Australia when I was just turning 8. And we lived in a little suburb called Croydon Park. And pretty much because we had nothing, we were taught to earn whatever we wanted. And that was a great thing because it taught me a lot about resilience. It taught me a lot about being the creator of my own destiny and making me realize that I'm responsible for whatever I have. Anything that happens, I'm the sole person responsible. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm still the one responsible.
That really does build resilience and a new lens of looking at the world. What sort of philosophies has that led you to believe around business?
It's changed a lot over the years, but recently I just had 2 little babies. One's only 2 years old and one's 3 years old. And I look at building a business very similar to looking after raising children. So the way I look at it now is true creation needs to have its own life beyond the creator. If whatever you're creating is dependent on the creator, then it's not true creation. So think of it like God created the world and the world evolves without God's interference. As a parent, you can teach your children all the values, etc. But at some point, they're going to grow up and they're going to have their own life and they're going to make their own decisions, and you have to be comfortable with that. I think business is very similar, where if you want to really build a business, you give it the foundation, you teach it values, and you allow the people inside your business to make their own decisions and allow them to grow by themselves, even without your interference. And nowadays, I look at leadership, I look at creation and business building with that kind of lens. How do I remove myself? How do I empower my people to make their own decisions? And how do I give them the values and the frameworks in which to guide their decisions?
So for those listening, that's a great philosophy. You aligned a business analogy and a parenting analogy to ensure that you're giving your business or whatever you're working on a life of its own so that it can operate without you, leave a legacy, and so forth.
Exactly.
That's wonderful. I think that's a really nice opportunity for those listening to reflect on what they're doing every day, and are they giving their people or are they leading in that type of way? It's a good self-reflection question.
I think a lot of that actually comes from my dad, because we've got a family. We've got a really big family. I've got 10 children in the family. And my dad is a great leader. A lot of things I learn about leadership is from him. His style of leadership has never been driven by fear. It's driven by true respect. We've got 10 children and we all get along really, really well. But he teaches us the values, and then he just lets us go off and do our own things with the values that he's passed on. And I think it's a really, really good way of looking at leadership.
Absolutely. There's so much we learn from our parents, particularly, my dad came from India, and whilst it wasn't exactly the same circumstance, there's so much that legacy that's passed on where they've dealt with way more complex lives, and it really ingrains what is actually really important in life.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Binh, that, I guess, carries across to where you work with your clients too, because really you're empowering them to build a business that is, a life of its own. So just share Market Ease and what you actually do. What do you actually do day to day?
What we actually do is we help companies penetrate more of the market, and we help them get more influence in their marketplace, have more impact in whatever it is that they do. And the way we do that is we leverage digital media. I often say that most marketing decisions are based on intuition, and what we attempt to do is validate those decisions with data. And that could be, traditionally, most people would just look internally for that data to validate the decisions. But what we do is we marry, or we combine internal data with external data and platform data. So internal data is all the information that you have inside of your business, whether it's from your CRM, your POS, point of sale system, or just your database altogether. Then there's external data, any sort of data that we can gather from the government, from any external source. And then there's platform data, all the data that the different platforms like Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. knows about each individual. And we marry those three sources of data to find correlations, and that gives us insights, and it helps us with the decisions that we help our clients to make, so that they can make it with a lot more certainty, a lot more clarity, and a lot more confidence. One
of my favourite personal sayings is no one executes alone. So I think you're an important part of a lot of your clients' success in their business. That is true collaboration in terms of your goal every day is to make sure your clients are penetrating the market in which they seek to achieve. Can you give me some examples of I guess it's beyond just a supplier-client relationship, about how you truly collaborate to get the best outcome for your clients?
This brings us back to what I was talking about before, where you got to empower your people to make their own decisions. We have a set of core values, and it's under the acronym of LIVE. It's what we live by. The L is limitless, which is basically we believe that all problems are an opportunity to grow, to find new solutions. I is integrity. So whatever you say you're going to do with honesty, with integrity and transparency. The V is value transfer, and that's one of the big ones. So I'm a big believer in any transaction has to be an exchange in value. If the value is not being exchanged one way or the other, then it's not really a transaction. So what I teach my team to do is, hey, if you need to make your own decisions, even if it costs us money, it costs the company money, but you can justify it with one or more of those core values, then I'm okay with it. And they would share, a lot of times they would share the decisions that they've made that has costed marketers money, but because of, say, value transfer, for example, where that particular month they felt that the value wasn't being transferred. And so they needed to do something in order to make sure that the value is being transferred. That may come with a negative short-term impact on marketers, but long-term wise, it creates very, very sticky, very, very long-term clients. And that's what the DNA of marketers is like that. So we think of ourselves more of a marketing partner, and everyone that we spoke to, all of our clients, and you'll see a lot of the case study videos that we have on our website as well. There are dozens of them, and they all say they feel like marketers feels like they're part of our team, not an external agency, because we do meet up with them every week. We do talk to them on a regular basis. We know exactly what's going on over there, and we know much deeper than just the marketing metrics, the financials. We know a lot deeper about their business, because we genuinely want to help. We want to do whatever we can to achieve the common outcome that we're both going for.
And that applies to so many other businesses and industries, but it's inspirational to hear you share the way that you view your client relationships. So let's just go through the acronym again. So limitless.
Limitless, yep.
Opportunities.
Yes.
Integrity.
Yes.
Value transfer.
Yep, the last E, I left out. The last E is embracing change and pursuing growth. If you think of our industry, we're in the digital industry, that landscape changes very rapidly. So I tell everybody that wants to come into Marketeers and get a job there, I say, if you're stuck in your old ways of thinking, old ways of solving problems, and you're not open to new ways, you're not going to last very long here because the landscape changes all the time. You have to always be open to new things, and you always got to be pursuing growth because the industry doesn't stop. So it's not going to wait for anybody.
I love how you instinctively do this day to day, embed all that culture in your business, and that's how you work with your clients. Talk to me, we were chatting earlier about Rethink 4.0. You mentioned that to me earlier, where you actually get your clients to connect and collaborate. I think it's a great piece of nugget of knowledge. Shouldn't just expand on that?
I think business, there are a lot of levers in business. There are a lot of pillars that hold up the stability of a business. And marketing is just one of them. And for us to really, really help our clients to succeed and achieve what they're out to achieve, it can't just be reliant on one pillar alone. So what we do is we get them together and we have other experts in other areas, whether it's in strategy or financial, whatever the case is, or leadership, because we know that those pillars are really, really important towards their success as well. And I'd love to sit here and take all the credit for all the successes that our clients have had, but really we just play a very small piece of the puzzle. I think all the other pieces are required to be in place, whether it's operations, whether it's customer service, whatever the case is. All those pieces need to be aligned in order for a business to truly grow. And so as a business that truly cares for our clients, we want to look for what the other pieces are and how do we bridge that gap, even when sometimes it means we're putting out extra resources in order to get that information to them. A
true value add. Are there any other examples of collaboration, Binh, that come to mind? And I should also mention you're a valued industry expert within the SA Leaders Network, supporting our members in the network. But what other collaboration examples come to mind for you?
Well, when it comes to SA Leaders, we collaborate with a lot of the other industry experts, not just industry experts, but even members. Beyond that, so we're putting together something, and I'm allowed to reveal it now because it's
you heard
very,
it here
very
first,
new.
people.
It's first time being revealed here, but we're putting together an advisory panel, and one of the first members that I approached came from SA Leaders, and that's Andrew Downs from Sage Automation, because I value his wisdom, I value his experience. But yeah, that wouldn't have come about if we didn't have that collaboration with SA Leaders at the beginning. Also, we got the two other members. One came from the CEO Institute and one came from the Australian Centre for Business Growth. Prior to this, it's not like, it just happened out of nowhere. There was a lot of relationship that was built over the years, and there was a lot of collaboration that was created, nurtured in the past. So with the Centre for Business Growth, as an example, we've co-sponsored many, many different events. We've co-sponsored many, many different awards. We've co-authored a lot of articles around the internet and media releases. So you'll find there's articles where I do a joint article with Dr. Jana Matthews or a joint article with Ryan Williams. And Ryan Williams is on the advisory panel as a result. And that's just because we've built that relationship and we've nurtured that relationship over the years through many coffees and many conversations, and we can see the value aligning. And then when the right time comes, magic happens. So this is when now we're truly getting together and collaborating and working towards a common goal.
And it's also just, as I'm sort of hearing you share your insights there, it's for people listening, it's about surrounding yourself by people that care and are passionate about your business, that you've got a relationship that you've nurtured. They're smart people. Always surround yourself by smart people.
Well, I came to Australia not knowing anything, right? I came to Australia not even knowing how to speak the language. So I had to learn everything by myself. And I know that I'm often the dumbest person in the room. And I like that. I want to be the dumbest person in the room. So I think surrounding yourself with smart people is really, really important. I look at it as you got to build your own little community. Right? It's a mini community of people that you respect, people that you value, and people that value you as well. that's really important as well. So that value alignment, I think, is really important. And I seek wisdom from other people because I know I don't have all the answers. And it's a matter of I don't know what I don't know. Different people learn through different things. I like to learn from other people, first and foremost. My second source of inspiration or education comes from books and podcasts.
Well, we'll get a recommendation from you in just a minute. I'm not convinced you are the dumbest person in the room at any time, Binh, but what about giving back just out of interest? Because I think it's important others are helping you in your business. Do you then go and pay that forward?
I'm a big believer in paying it forward. The mistake that I made in the past is that I try to pay everybody forward without really thinking about who I'm paying forward. What I've learned is that you can only help people that want to be helped. If they don't want the help in the first place, no matter how much you try, it's not going to move the needle very far. So now I try to pay it forward as much as I can, but I'm also assessing whether this person actually wants my help or not.
You just talked about then that you came as an 8-year-old to Australia. You didn't know the language. You grew up here in Adelaide. You went to school, if I'm correct, at Adelaide High School. And I know this story because I've heard you share it before, but we're going to talk about firecrackers now, and it's probably not what everyone thought we were going to talk about, but we're going to talk about firecrackers. Binh, why are we going to talk about firecrackers?
It wasn't until I got to high school that I realised, hey, other people have a lot of things and I want those things, but at our house, we don't have a lot of money, so I had to earn what I wanted, right? And the only thing that I could think of at the time was there was a stage where firecrackers were being sold. In Vietnam, firecrackers are very, very common. Every kid plays with firecrackers. They wait for pretty much every party, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a New Year, whether any sort of party, there would be a lot of firecrackers being lit. So for me, it's normal. But when I came here, it was very rare. And when I got to high school, there was a lot of students that were curious about firecrackers but couldn't get their hands on it. And I knew a person that had a license and could buy them. And so what I did was, there was a market gap. I bought off that person and I sold it back to the students. But being new to the country, I could get the trust of my fellow Asian students quite well because I could speak their language and I could communicate quite well. However, when it comes to the Caucasian students, it was a bit more difficult to gain their trust. And so I did a lot of things in high school that at the time I didn't realize it was all part of building trust. It's all around the psychology of building trust. But I did things like when students was curious but didn't dare, I would give them one for free. It's the same thing as giving them a free trial in today's world. But also I remember there were times when, because I knew every single of my customer, every single student. Right? I knew them by name, I knew them, their family, I knew which ones were getting in trouble, which ones weren't getting in trouble. There was one time at lunchtime, one of the students lit up a firecracker, and he's one of those people that never get in trouble. If he ever gets in trouble, he'll be in really, really big trouble with his family. A teacher heard it and came over and basically questioned who lit up this firecracker, and you could see on the expression of his face he was really, really terrified. So I just stood up and I said, I did it, and I just took the blame for that student. Now, I got told off and I got 7 days detention, which to me I didn't mind too much, but for him it would have been, he would have very difficult conversations with his parents. Little did I know that just from that act, the word spread really quickly, and people were saying, oh, Binh's someone that you can trust. Binh's got your back. He will never dob on you. He'll even take the blame for you. And that allowed me to gain the trust of people that I couldn't gain trust of before as well. So all the Caucasian students were coming to me. They wanted to know. There were also things like not all firecrackers light up or do what it's supposed to do, right? The ideal scenario is every single firecracker you sell, it would light up and it would blow up and it would make a bang sound. Not some of them, we call them duds. You light it up and nothing happens. When that happens, I just give them another one, right? And it's
the money back guarantee.
It's that money back guarantee. You're showing them that you care, right? You're showing them that you really, really care. What you promised that you're going to deliver, you will deliver at all costs. And I think that's really important. I feel, especially in South Australia, the market is very small. It's a very conservative, small market. Everybody knows everybody almost. We're 1 degree of separation. So I feel like reputation is everything. And everything you do has to be built around defending that reputation. They say reputation takes a lifetime to build and 1 moment to destroy. And so my philosophy around business has always been, hey, how do you defend your reputation as much as possible by doing the right thing?
And any young people that are listening, by any chance, we are not suggesting you go to school and sell firecrackers. But I do love all of the alignment you there to your own business values. One element, Binh, was that you started to work out, just correct me if I'm wrong, you're buying the firecrackers in bundles and then you were unhinging them and then selling them individually. So your profit margin was significantly increased as you
Correct.
went through that process.
Yeah, at first we were just selling them individually and we were buying them individually. But then when we realized, hey, I could buy them in bulk in a line and just disassemble themselves, then we realized, hey, instead of making this amount of money per firecracker, I can make this amount of money per firecracker. And that allowed us, funnily enough, a lot of resources that could be put into marketing. And when I say marketing, I'm talking about like the free trials and all that, because we were getting a much bigger profit margin. So we could afford to give some away for free. We could afford to do a lot of things that our competitors couldn't do. And there's only like 2 or 3 people that were supplying them. But when you've got that advantage, all of a sudden everybody flocks to you.
You were an entrepreneur from a young age, and there are some good lessons in the story you tell. So now you've been in business marketees for 17 years. You've just made an acquisition of a video production company. So now we get to the point where there's more complexity in the business. There's more people in the business. There's more financial structure in the business. And so it's about really, I love talking about the process around developing a strategy going forward. What tools do you use? What level of complexity? Is it a plan on a page? Can you just share how you look at your business now and how you look ahead and plan formally in your business?
Yeah, there's a couple of things here. One is that I followed the philosophy of small continuous improvement. The power of compound is one of the most underestimated forces out there. What we do is we don't really look at the competitors. We are aware of what the competitors do. We don't really see anybody as true competitors anyway. The only competitor is ourselves. And so we're always competing against ourselves from yesterday. And I'm a big believer in if you just make small incremental improvements every single day, through the power of compounding, it's going to create a company that becomes very, very stable, very, very strong. And so our philosophy has always been, hey, we don't need to jump from A to Z. Let's just become 1% better.
It's almost impossible to jump from A to Z, isn't it?
But most people look at it that way,
Yeah.
right? And we're like, oh, no, we don't need to. We just need to be better than yesterday. And if every day we've got the same mindset, hey, we need to be better than yesterday, we need to be better than yesterday, then we look at, okay, where are our weaknesses? So right now what we're doing as a team is every quarter we have a quarterly business review, QBR, and it's always done offsite. So we get out of the office, we go into a pub, or we hire a place, and we would talk about, so we would divide all of our issues into rocks, pebbles, sands. Rocks being the 90-day projects, pebbles being the smaller monthly, sands, things you can do daily, weekly. In our quarterly business reviews, we basically bring together a list of rocks, and every quarter would have that list of rocks. Those rocks are then given a person that's accountable. So we use RACI, someone that's responsible, someone that's accountable, someone to be communicated with, and someone to be informed.
Okay, RACI.
RACI, yep. But the leadership team would take those rocks and they would work on it. If they're the one accountable, then they'll work on it with their mini teams or with themselves. What we've done is recently, and this is very recent, is what I spoke about before, putting together an advisory panel, because one of the things I don't want to do is I really value the people that are sitting on that panel, so I don't want to waste their time. So what we do is we strategically make our panel meeting straight after a week after the QBR, so that I can bring the top 2 to 3 rocks to the meeting and have enough time for me to think of solutions and give them, here's what we're thinking in terms of solving these particular issues. And this is how we're going to measure it, and this is how we're going to track it. Because I also know that people with more wisdom, they may see it from another lens, from another perspective that I would never even consider. And so for them, they're like my think tank. The way we're addressing it is, okay, if every quarter we have these rocks that we address, and then within their siloed teams, they've got these pebbles and these sands that they address on a weekly and monthly basis, all of a sudden, we've got 30 people in our team. If they even just address one sand, not even a pebble, one sand a week, all of a sudden that becomes a lot. So, right? So at the end of the year, we're going to have a list of like hundreds and hundreds of little incremental steps closer to our goal. And that's the idea. It's how many little steps can we take towards our goal that in the short term may not feel like we're going far, but after a year, you look at it and you put it up on a butcher's paper and you stick it up onto the wall. All of a sudden, you've got a whole full wall of hundreds of steps that we've taken throughout the year. And imagine doing that over 3 to 5 years. It's going to be very, very difficult for a competitor who has been sleeping or hibernating all this time to try to catch up to that, right? So that's how I'm approaching strategy.
So you're talking rocks, pebbles and sand. For those that have not read Traction, because I'm just jumping into the fact that you run, an EOS, but can you just expand on that, just to give the background? And Traction has been a book that has been mentioned a few times in this podcast series. Just for those that haven't been made aware of it, could you just share what that is a little bit more?
It's a framework to help you prioritize things. And the concept is, if you had a jar and a lot of rocks, pebbles and sands, if you fill up the jar with sands first, which is what most of us do, then there'll be no space left for any pebbles. If you fill up the pebbles first, there's no space for rocks. But if you do it the other way around and you put in the rocks in first, then all of a sudden there's little gaps in between the rocks where you can fit in the pebbles. Then you can put in the pebbles, all of a sudden there's very, very small gaps that you can fit in the sands. Even then it's not full. Even then you can still pour some water into it, and then the jar is really, really filled. So when you think of whether it's time management, if the sands and the water represent all of our everyday distractions, and we're putting that on top of our priority, we'll have no time for pebbles and rocks. We'll have no time for the important things. When it comes to your priorities with, say, business and family and all that, whatever you value the most, if you don't intentionally put your effort towards those things that matter to you, you'll never have time for that, because in our everyday lives, we're very, very busy, and we're always distracted with different things going from left, right and center. If all we're doing is just responding to those things and we don't intentionally leave time for the things that matter, such as family, such as whatever is important to you, then it's very easy for us to forget to have that time. And so the whole concept around rocks, pebbles and sand is identify what's important that takes some time to achieve, prioritize that, put that in first, and then fit everything else around it. Don't fit the rocks around everything else.
And you mentioned those quarterly business reviews include your team of
Correct.
people. So culture is obviously a priority for you and your business, as for many. In addition to that quarterly process you just talked about, is there something unique that you do in your business that is the marketee's way that significantly aligns the culture of the people in your business?
Trust is a big one. What I do is, because I allow them to make decisions, because I allow them to change our process, it's because I allow them to mold how Marketees is created, how Marketees is operated, how Marketees is run. It's no longer dependent, like I said, it's not dependent on me anymore. What you'll find, the process that we had 2 years ago versus last year versus this year has significantly improved. I think each year will probably improved 5 to 10 times better. And I was only more involved in the earlier years. The years after that, it's really the people who are hands-on with everything. They find better ways to do things. They find more efficient ways to do things. They find ways to get better performance. They'll mold the processes and the systems. So now I look at it and I'm going, wow, I would never have been able to create this. But I think that giving them that trust, where it's okay to stuff up. I don't mind you stuffing up if you've got a good reasoning for it and you're following our values. There's this framework called the 4-way test. It's actually from another company back in the days that sold pots and pans. And in the GFC, they went bankrupt almost, pretty much, because they didn't have any shop fronts. The way that they grew was through house parties, and they would introduce their products at house parties. But when the GFC happened, there was no one having parties at home. So they went into administration, and this man that took over, he decided, he was a very religious man, so he put together these 4 questions. And then he took it to all of the religious leaders and asked, if we could answer yes to all of these 4 things when we're making a decision, would that make the world a better place? And all the religious leaders, from the priests, monks, etc., they all agreed, this will make the world a really, really good place to live in. So he applied that to the company, and he completely turned the company around. The 4 questions are: is it based on fact? Is it the truth? Or is it just an opinion? Second one is it fair to all those that are concerned? The third one is, will it build goodwill and better relationships? Would it make everybody else closer? And the fourth one is, will it be beneficial to all those concerned? Now, he published that publicly, And there were a lot of corporate companies, we're talking about billion-dollar companies, that followed his footstep and took this 4-way test and applied it to their company with really, really good results. And he was part of the local Rotary Club. And so Rotary International decided, hey, I asked, can we use this in our organisation? And still to this day, it's being used by Rotary International with 44,000 members or something like that. And in Marketees, we've done the same thing. So back then, we focused a lot on teaching our people what to do. But what really frustrated me was, okay, now they know what to do, how do we teach them how to think? And I want them to be able to think for themselves. I want them to be able to make decisions for themselves, but not go too far out of what I would normally do. So I realized that we need to give a framework when they need to make those decisions, when they need to do that thinking, right, and put their thinking hat on. So I said, anybody in here, if you need to make a difficult decision and you can say yes to all 4 of these questions, and we have these 4 questions printed out all over the office, but you can say yes to all these 4 questions and you can justify it with 1 or more of those values that we have on the wall. Go ahead and make the decision. You don't need to talk to your senior. You don't need to talk to your manager. You don't need to talk to anyone. Don't talk to me. Only talk to me if you can't say yes to any of these. Then we'll discuss it. Right? And that removes a lot of... I don't know if you heard of the management book where every time someone comes into your room with a problem, it's like they're bringing a monkey into your room and then they leave. If the problem doesn't get solved, then they leave the monkey in your room. And over time, your room gets filled with monkeys and you never get anything done, right? This way, 1, we can stop them from coming into the room with a monkey in the first place. But 2, they've already thought about the solution. And usually when they come in, I'm not the one to provide the solution for them. I just ask them, okay, what's the pros and cons of the solution that you've created? And then we discuss that. And if there's an alternative, then that will come out. If the solution that they created was good, but they were just doubting themselves, then we just go put it through the 4-way test. So now when they come in and they leave the room, they're taking the monkey with them. And I'm not stuck with a whole bunch of monkeys in my office. I think that's a big thing, being able to give your team the power and the trust to make those decisions without getting angry at them when things don't go wrong.
Thanks for sharing that, Binh. And I think the insight I also add to that is theory versus practice, right? You've actually put all of this into practice. It's really some great case studies. So thank you for that. Binh, it's been an amazing time chatting with you. Just before we wrap up, you've mentioned that you do read a lot of books. You've mentioned a couple, but what would be your final recommendation to leave with everyone listening today? Okay,
this is based on recency more than anything, but recently I read a book called The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. And he talks about how the Vietnam didn't actually win the war. They lost badly in terms of the casualties. The amount of losses that they had compared to America was significant. But the reason why they won the war is because they looked at the war as an infinite game, whereas America looked at it as a finite game. Because they had no end, they just wanted to win back their country. The war was never going to end unless they give up, right? Most businesses and leaderships or executives of companies, they think of business too much as of a finite game where, hey, I'm going to increase my profit margin or our profit margin or our bottom line by this amount, or we're going to be the best in the industry and it's going to be measured this way. And once that gets achieved, then it's the end. Where what he's saying is the best companies don't think of an end. He used an example of when Apple came out with the iPod. And Microsoft had a similar version of the iPod, but it was significantly better at the time. And he did some talks with the Apple and the Microsoft leadership team. And he went to one of the bosses at Apple and said, did you know that Microsoft has this product? And it's significantly better than what you've got right now in terms of the iPod. And that particular person was like, yeah, we know. It's okay. But wasn't bothered by it at all because he didn't see it as the finite game. Apple's mission was to enrich or empower people's lives through technology, right? And so it doesn't stop at the iPod. If they were fixated onto what Microsoft was doing at the time, they would never have come out with the iPhone. When the iPhone came out, it made the iPod obsolete. And now no one really uses an iPod anymore because you can do all of that on an iPhone. And so because their mindset was all about, hey, how do we change humanity for the better? There was never an end game. There was never a final destination. They're always looking to improve themselves again and again and again. And that's how I look at business. How do I become better than yesterday? And how do we play the infinite game so that we're not fixated on what the competitors are doing and what the end, where the result line or the end line,
the finite
line looks like.
Yeah.
because that always gets moved.
Wonderful, great. Well, Simon Sinek, he's a leader. Binh, it's been absolute pleasure, just getting into, as I said, I think I used the word labyrinth when we first started, of your mind. Thank you for sharing your story with us, and thanks for all your valuable insights.
Thank you so much for having me. It was very fun.
I really hope you enjoyed this chat and it inspires you to harness your own power of collaboration. You can contact me, Natasha Milani, via LinkedIn or saleaders.com.au. All my details are in the show notes. And thank you for listening.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.